So 2016 is about to come to an end, and the general consensus is this has been a pretty disappointing year at the movies, which is kind of confusing because we've had even some big blockbusters like Civil War, Zootopia, Jungle Book, Deadpool that have been both loved by fans, critical successes, and they've made a lot of money. And then you've also had movies like Hell or High Water or Hacksaw Ridge that have been smaller films that have done well with the critics, obviously. So why is it that this year feels so disappointing? And I think it comes down to, if you really look at the top 25 movies when it comes to box office success this year, you see certain patterns that set us up to feel disappointed by the movies. And when I say disappointed, you first have to define what that means. So when I say disappointed, what I mean is that you go in with certain expectations, and when your expectations aren't met, you're disappointed. The basic definition. You know what being disappointed means, and you know what it means to be wowed. Your expectations are somewhere, and it exceeds your expectations. And then there's the other thing that happens if you have expectations and they're met, and you're satisfied with the movie. And so when it comes to the movies that have come out this year, how many movies have actually wowed us and just exceeded our expectations? How many movies have come below our expectations? And how many movies have landed right at where our expectations are at? And if you look at the numbers for the movies that have come out this year, there's a reason that I think we feel the way we feel. And for this video, I'm specifically talking about the top 25 box office earners because those are the movies that the most people have seen, the most people are talking about, engaging with. Every year, there's dozens of good, great, very good, excellent, smaller films, smaller dramas, indie films that come out. But the movies that really shape the current culture and feeling about movies for a given year are the movies that connect with a broad audience, not just narrow groups of people, niche audiences, but the ones that so many people saw, loved, and thought were great movies, not just popcorn movies, but great cinema. That's what kind of shapes the way we feel. And when you look at the top 25 box office grossers from this year, like I said, certain patterns show up. So looking at the numbers, of the top 25 earners this year, 14 of them were sequels or franchise movies. So Deadpool wasn't really a sequel to another movie, but it was a part of the X-Men franchise. Beyond that, another 3 movies were reboots, remakes, or relaunches of something. So The Jungle Book was a remake. The Legend of Tarzan was a relaunch of Tarzan. Moving on from even that, 3 more movies were based off of a book, a video game, or a real-life event. So once again, from something familiar. Now, if you add that up, 20 of the top 25 grossers this year were part of a franchise, retelling a story that's already been told, or a adaptation of a story that we already know. That leaves the remaining 5 as original stories that have not been told before. And of those 5, only 2 were live-action movies, and those live-action movies were Central Intelligence and Bad Moms. And so even the 2 live-action movies that were original stories were basically genre films. They were a certain type of movie that follows a certain formula, and you just kind of crunch it through the machine and you get a quality piece of entertainment for the right demographic. That's what those movies were. Now, to state the obvious, clearly Hollywood is interested in telling stories that are safe and familiar to a certain audience. They want something that people already know, already have a connection to, and that there's already a built-in audience so they know how to market to those people. This has the advantage of, obviously, you know what you're getting when you go into it, and you know what type of people you want to go after to try to get to go to your movies. It's existing properties, and as a business decision, it's a safe decision. You're more likely to make something that a specific group of people will enjoy if it's based off of something you already know that they like. That's just stating the obvious, and we already knew Hollywood does that. I'm not saying something new that's going to shock you. The problem with this approach to storytelling is when you pick something familiar, you're picking something that already has a clear expectation. We know what we're probably going to get from this. And so when you take a familiar story, a franchise, a sequel, a reboot, and then you run it through the Hollywood machine and you get a writer-director that we have clear expectations of what they will deliver, you get a star that we're familiar with the way they act, the way they do humor, the way they do action stunts, you run it through the formula for a blockbuster of the different genre it might be, if that's a comic book movie, darker comic book movie, maybe it's Bad Moms, so the rated R comedy for adults that are moms. You run it through the formula that we're familiar with, that we have expectations for. So when we already know what to expect from the story, we already know what to expect from the director, we already know what to expect from these actors, and we already know what to expect from this genre, you go in with really clear expectations. And when you look at the movies that came out this year, we went in with a lot of expectations. And even if you take a Civil War, a movie I really liked, one of my favorite movies of the year, one of the movies I went to go see multiple times in the theater, I knew what to expect, and it lived up to my expectations that were pretty high, and it didn't exceed them. Because they were already high, I already knew what to expect. And so I left going, that's what I wanted from that movie. But it didn't wow me. It might be a really high-level movie, but I was expecting it to be really high level, and that's what I got. Other movies, though, however, Batman v Superman, Batman and Superman in a movie together, and it was well below most of our expectations, so we were disappointed. And maybe that one, because it had something new to it, bringing these two characters together, a darker comic book movie, perhaps that one could have wowed us, because there was something new to it to wow. Even Doctor Strange, not as great of a movie as Civil War, but it had elements that could wow us in the visuals and telling this new characters. But even some of these movies that we loved, what we talked about that wowed us about The Jungle Book, which I actually haven't seen yet, is the visuals of it. Well, it was a fun action-adventure movie, but it was really the visuals, the style of it that wowed people, something we hadn't seen before. But not the story itself. It was something familiar and pretty straightforward. That's the problem with this year. When you have a year where 20 out of 25 of the movies that lots of people went to go see, when that happens, we have clear expectations and there's not potential for us to be wowed by a lot of movies. We just kind of can be satisfied or disappointed. And then when you start looking at the movies and you go, okay, Independence Day, that did not live up to my expectations. Suicide Squad did not live up to my expectations. Ghostbusters did not live up to the original. And there's all these movies that keep disappointing us. And all these movies, Jason Bourne didn't live up to the expectations. And some of these were bad and some of them were just good enough, but they didn't live up to the expectations we had, and they certainly didn't wow us. And that's what this year has looked like. A year full of movies that we knew what to expect, that delivered good enough movies, on occasion living up to high expectations, but nothing wowing us when it came to these big movies we all saw. Now, I love big blockbusters. I mean, those are the movies that I probably just enjoy the most at my current phase in life. I enjoy deeper dramas in movies that really make you think or pull on your emotions through deep, complex, tragic storytelling. But I don't want to watch those all that often. Just in my current phase of life, there's enough actual drama. I want to watch these blockbusters, but they're not the most satisfying and fulfilling of movies. And there's a simple reason for it. It's what we've talked about. I kind of like to talk about these types of blockbusters, where we're at right now, where there's so many remakes and adaptations, sequels, franchise films, and not original big blockbusters, is that they're like Taco Bell movies or they're like Chili's movies. Let's say these are two different things. So Taco Bell movies. What's Taco Bell? It's a place I love to get tacos from every Sunday after church. As a family tradition, we get Taco Bell. I cover them in hot sauce, and I love my Taco Bell tacos. Sometimes they're crisp the way I like them. A lot of the times they're kind of soggy. Either way, they're enjoyable enough. There's something that I enjoy eating. It's Taco Bell food. You know what you're going to get. You know it's not good for you. You know you'll probably be sick 12 hours later or 8 hours later. But it's something that's enjoyable in the moment. In the year 2015, Jurassic World was my favorite Taco Bell movie of that year. Great cinema? Of course not. Great acting? No. Great inventive storytelling? Of course not. But it delivered something that I enjoyed eating, something that I enjoyed that experience. It was fun for me. Very nice experience for me. Great movie? No, of course not. Other people, their Taco Bell movie is the Transformers movies. I I don't enjoy those all that much. They're just, it's like homework to get through them. It's, oh my goodness, this is still going on. I don't like them. Some people didn't like Jurassic World, but they love the Transformers movies. I love Jurassic World. I mean, we all go back and forth as to what our Taco Bell is, our cheap entertainment, that it's just the dinosaurs fighting each other. I love it. Robots fighting each other. I love it. Whatever yours is, that's fine. But if it's Taco Bell, admit that it's a Taco Bell movie. Along the same lines, moving over to our Chili's movies, I think these are actually good movies. This is solid entertainment. I think that the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they are consistently producing quality movies that live up to high standards, quality storytelling, some great characters in there, some great visuals in some of them, just very quality entertainment. It's like a steak dinner from Chili's. Well, what's Chili's? They've got a set recipe that some guy up in New York or California makes a recipe. They send it out to all their chefs and they have to follow this exact formula. Maybe that first time you go into Chili's and you get that steak, it wows you. Iron Man wowed me. A few years later, maybe they change up their steak a little bit. You get the Avengers. That wowed me. Just something different. Guardians of the Galaxy, something different. It wowed me. The second time you get the steak, it's a good, solid steak that you enjoy, but it doesn't wow you. Age of Ultron, Captain America Civil War, very solid movies. These aren't bad, but it's difficult for me to just be wowed by Civil War when I've already kind of had this. I've seen these characters so many times. They battled each other a little bit. In the first Avengers, they battled each other a little bit. In the second Avengers, and they battle each other in Captain America Civil War, Avengers 2.5. I mean, we've seen it. Really liked it. One of my top 3 favorite movies of the year. It didn't wow me because I've had it before. And I think that's what Marvel's doing. That's what these Star Wars movies have kind of turned into. These are movies that Disney's trying to create that perfect recipe that lots of people will like. It's not new. It's not interesting. You even look at what they did. The Force Awakens. It's basically a soft reboot of A New Hope. You look at Rogue One, it's a new story connected to a story we already know with a bunch of like nonstop barrage of things that me as a fan, I was like, that's awesome, that's awesome, that's awesome. Vader showed up. That's awesome. But it's playing off the familiar, what I already know, what I already love. And so I left it like, I really liked that. It met my expectations, maybe a little bit below them. Force Awakens, really enjoyed it. A little bit below my expectations, didn't wow me. Some of my favorite movies of the years, this year and last year, they didn't wow me because I knew kind of what I was going to get, or it came a little below what I was expecting. That's the problem with what Hollywood is doing these days. When you have this many reboots, remakes, franchises, adaptations, you know what you're getting going into it. That's the whole point. That's why they're doing it. They're creating something that you know what you're getting. They know what they're giving you. They know that you're out there and they're trying to give you exactly what you already want, as opposed to creating something new and discovering something new that we like. They're packaging what they know you already like. It's that Chili's dinner. It's that Taco Bell meal. That's what they're doing. When you have 20 out of 25 of the biggest movies, adaptation sequels, remakes, that's what happens. That's why you're not feeling wowed. That's why this year in particular felt disappointing, because a bunch of these movies, they came below, and even the ones that were really good, it just kind of felt like, okay, that was cool. Like a lot of people said that Star Trek Beyond was the best of this new Star Trek universe. And it still didn't really get any buzz. It performed the weakest at the box office, and it's had kind of the least chatter about it. And it's kind of like, oh yeah, I really like that one. It's the best of all of them. I mean, when Star Trek 2009 came out, and that was they took a risk, changed things up, the formula. It's more like Star Wars with Star Trek characters, this vibrant energy. People talked about it. People were so excited about it. And now it's like, yeah, this one's the best of all of them. It was kind of good. Because our expectations have changed. And they're giving us something that they know what the formula is, and they're just giving us what we expect. So how do you break that? Well, you got to take a risk and make something that we're not expecting, with people that we're not expecting, directors we're not expecting, storytelling we're not expecting. And that's where it's tricky, because, yeah, Sometimes those are big, gigantic flops. Jupiter Ascending, I wasn't expecting that, and it wasn't good. It was a risk. When you don't give us something that we're expecting, it could be awesome and it can be awful. When you make something that's through a formula, that has all the things that we know what to expect from these people, from these writers following this template, you know what to expect, and so it's probably not going to be awesome, and it's probably not going to be awful. Like, even one of the reasons Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad struggled is they were more interesting than Civil War. They weren't better than Civil War. Civil War was much better than those movies, but Civil War stuck to a tried and true formula. Batman v Superman tried a whole bunch of new storytelling, different types of stuff, and it failed at them. Suicide Squad tried new, different types of things that we hadn't seen before, and it failed at them. But it was more interesting in their failures and their flops. And that's what you got to do if you want to wow people. You've got to do interesting things that exceed expectations. You got to tell new stories. That's why Inception was so exciting, and why people love Nolan so much is his movies either feel like let him make big blockbusters that are fresh and new stories, or he tells superheroes, or his Batman series was very different from the comic book movies that were coming out at the time, so they felt new, different, and risky. And because of it, people love him. And he's a good filmmaker also. But that's what you got to do. You got to take those risks. And since it's not me risking my money saying this, I understand why Hollywood is doing what they're doing. But so long as we are voting with our money and choosing to go watch these movies, they're going to keep being risk averse, and they're going to keep giving them to us, which I don't even know what to say. I don't want to do that because I want them to keep making all these comic book movies. I want more Star Trek movies. I want more Star Wars movies. But that comes at a cost of riskier, more satisfying, more likely to wow us types of films. I get something safe. I like it. I get something risky. I might hate it and I might love it. That's the nature of things. How about you? What do you think? Am I crazy? Why do you think it is that this year felt so disappointing at the movies? Or is that do you think that's wrong? This was a great year at the movies, and this general consensus that it was a disappointing year is really only based off of like the DC movies and Ghostbusters. What do you think? Tell me in the comment section. I don't want to just talk about movies. I want to talk about movies with you. Join me down there. Let's process the year 2016 in movies down below, why it did or did not work, and what Hollywood perhaps should do to change it. Let's comment below about what it is. If you're new to my channel and you've never clicked that subscribe button, please consider clicking that subscribe button. I love to talk movies and TV, and I love to talk with you. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.